call the, well, not call the meeting. I'd like to, first of all, open the public hearing we have two public hearings tonight. The first public hearing is for the adoption of the amended Code of Ethics for the Town of Clermont. I'd like Mary to read the notice, please.
Okay, the Clermont Town Board will hold a public hearing and secret review on Monday. You want to do this way? That's number 2.
I go backwards.
I realized, yeah. Number 1 is there.
Yes,
and that's what we had scheduled.
All right,
Yes,
I'm sorry.
So, all right, the Clermont Town Board will hold a public hearing and secret review on Monday, May 6, 2013 at 6:40 p.m. at the Town Hall, 1795 Route 9, Clermont, New York, to consider local law number 1 of 2013, a local law amending section 4.14.11 of the Town of Clermont zoning law relative to earth filling and depositing, providing for exceptions to the current section. This local law also provides an amendment to the definition of storage unit contained in Article 2B of the zoning law.
Thank you, Mary. I'm going to ask Bob to please just update everybody so they know again what this is about. We had a couple minor changes to the law, and Bob can fill everybody in.
Yeah, the first one is relating to the section of the zoning law on mining and filling and depositing. And it requires you to have a special permit from the zoning board in order to do any kind of mining or depositing. Now, for the mining part or removal of material, there's exceptions in the zoning law that if you have a building permit to build a house and you need to remove some material in the process of building the house, you can do that. There's no such exception for bringing material in. There's also no exception for bringing in a small amount of material if somebody wants to patch their driveway or build a driveway. Okay. Now, we do have in the highway specifications, it specifies that you have to get a driveway permit, and if there was not a contrary law, you would assume that if you get a permit, you have the right to bring material in to build a driveway. But I've checked with our legal counsel and the highway superintendent, and because we did not have the exception in the zoning law, then that presumption doesn't go. So therefore, even if you have a permit to build a house, you can't bring material in legally to build your driveway. Or if you want to fix your driveway with potholes, you can't bring any material in. This was an oversight or a mistake or something when the law was written. And basically what we're doing is fixing it. So that we will allow, if you have a building permit to build a house, you can bring material in or take material out. Either way, it's in connection with the building of the house. And once you have your house established and you need to bring in some material to patch your driveway or do some landscaping around the house or fix a septic system, you're allowed to bring in up to 50 cubic yards per year. If you need more than that, and somebody with a long driveway with a lot of repair needed might need that, and we still don't want you to have to go to the zoning board to get a special permit for that, so you can go to the building inspector and get a simple building permit, and so you can patch your driveway or fix a septic system or whatever. If you're going to fill a large area, as we've had some in town that have done that, we don't want any encroachment on wetlands, so therefore we do still want you to come to the zoning board to get a special permit for that. Now that hasn't been done in the past because I don't think anybody really realized that we had this problem with the zoning law and that we had the requirement to do that. So in addition to allowing the homeowner to do normal maintenance on his home, it also will draw attention to, and we've already notified the building inspector, that in fact if you're going to fill a large area, you need to get a special permit. All right, so that's basically what that's doing.
Okay, very good, Bob. Thank you. So at this point, I'll open it up for public comment.
Does that apply to, like, if somebody puts in a big garden, you'd have to get a permit to bring in soil? Like, let's say they put a raised bed in, and they want a very big garden. I mean, does that apply to that? Or does it apply to sealing your driveway?
Sealing your driveway, it would bring in topsoil for a raised bed. It would have, but that will be covered under the exception.
Okay.
Okay, so you'll be able to do that now.
So the magic number is 100 cubic yards.
50 cubic
50
yards
cubic yards?
per year.
Okay, so you're bringing 50 cubic feet, who cares?
Right.
Bob, you said something about wetlands. Could you repeat what you said about wetlands, about the infringement on wetlands?
We don't want any encroachment on wetlands. Wetlands, I mean, you can't just go in and arbitrarily fill a wetland.
I know,
Okay.
what about something that's not large enough to be considered legally a wetland, but it is, you know where I'm talking about, on Long Road, which is now Lasher Road. We had an issue back a couple of years ago about that. It is wetland, but it's not large enough to be classified wetland.
Okay, I think that's something that the building inspector would have to determine.
Okay.
And I think that's the idea about trying to limit it to 50 yards, so if there's any large amount of, any kind of material coming in, somebody has a set of eyes on it to see what's being, filled and what, what's going in it, so that's the main thing.
And it's also, the exception is for 3 types of things. If you need to fix a spot in your septic system, you can bring some gravel in. Now, if you need to replace your septic system, you're going to need more, and you'll have to go see the building inspector. But for a small amount, or to patch your driveway, or to do landscaping, and I would say that would probably include the garden.
How about mulch?
Mulch has been talked about, that's kind of an agricultural byproduct. So it's not really soil, it's earth filling and removal that's in the zoning law.
Okay.
Mr. Desmond, why don't you just keep the new stuff you wanted to add, why don't you make it new? Why put it in with the mining, depositing of dirt, and filling, when that law seems to be okay?
It's not okay, because that's where the problem is, because the law says today that if you want to do mining or filling, you need to have a special permit.
Right.
And then for the mining part, or the removal part, there are exceptions. The exceptions did not get put in the original law.
What about the depositing of large amounts of dirt? What is large amounts of dirt? It will be more than 50 cubic yards, what you're saying?
If it's anything more than 50 cubic yards in a year, or for some purpose other than driveway, landscaping, and septic system.
What is the answer? I still don't have the answer. If I were to bring in more than 50 cubic yards of dirt to do it, I want to fill up some land, what am I required to do?
You first go see the building inspector, and if it's not covered under landscaping, septic, or driveway, he will send you to the zoning board to get a permit.
To a special permit?
Yes.
Now, am I allowed to, it says here, I don't know if it's still in, but there's a new one. I'm supposed to bring a plan in, kind of show a plan what I'm doing with all this dirt?
Yeah.
All that is still in there?
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, we didn't take anything out.
But what are you adding the driveway in there when we have the driveway law already? We already have a driveway law. But the only thing to the driveway, I think you need a special permit.
No, you don't. What you need, if you're going to put in a new driveway, you need a driveway permit from the highway superintendent. And if the zoning law did not have the prohibitions that it has, you would assume that that would allow you to bring material in. But the zoning law will supersede that, so even though you have a permit to build a driveway, you need to, as it stands today, you need to go and get a special permit to bring the material in to build that driveway.
That kind of doesn't make sense, what's it?
You're exactly right, it doesn't make sense, and that's why we're changing it.
If you get a driveway permit, you should get the permit for everything. You gotta show a plan of where's your driveway, how you're making it, and that should be decided then. Then you get your permit and you do your driveway. It has nothing to do with the dirt coming in. I don't understand that.
And that's why, well, if you have to bring gravel in to build your driveway.
Of course,
That's
you're gonna need
prohibited.
gravel, you're gonna need rock, you're gonna need, depending on the situation, but that's why you get the driveway permit.
But the zoning law prohibits you from bringing the material in as it's written today, and that's what we're fixing.
Well, that law was really meant for mining, excavating, and depositing large amounts of dirt, like polluters. That's what that law is really for. That's what it's for.
Well, this
When
is
you
more
need a
specific.
permit.
This is more specific. You know, what we're doing update is more specific to separate the differences. I mean, right now, it's just, it's not specific enough to take away the person that wants to bring in a wheelbarrow of dirt, you know, you get a driveway permit. It just has to be more detail in the law, and we're fixing that, and that's what this is all about. It's not about taking anything out of it, it's about making it more detailed and more specific.
So 50 cubic yards is it?
There's two exceptions. First of all, if you have a valid building permit to build a house, you can bring in as much as you need in the process of building that house to build your driveway. If it's 100 cubic yards.
I'm sorry, the driveway?
Yeah, if you build a house, you're probably going to build a driveway, right?
I think, but you need a driveway permit,
Yes.
okay? So now I need a permit to bring dirt in, is what you're saying?
As it stands today. Tomorrow you won't, assuming that we vote in favor.
Very confusing.
Well, there's a copy of the law here, if you'd like a copy to read
Yeah,
through it.
well, I got the law here, I've been reading the law about this, the depositing of large amounts of dirt is what I'm worried about. It's all this dirt that comes in, where you actually need a special permit, you need a plan, you need some kind of drawing to show what you're doing with it.
Yes.
You can't, right, if you can't go into wetlands, it's not open forever. It should be some kind of period of time that you have to do that, and of course where the dirt is coming from, and that's when the DEC gets involved.
Yeah, we also specified in the law, the changes that we're making, is that you cannot bring in C&D material. Okay, now some C&D material is considered clean.
Yeah,
But-
who okays that? C&D, that will be the DEC. You
No, the
need to
zoning-
notify the DEC for that.
The zoning board can issue a special permit, but they then also can put restrictions on what that C&D material is. For example, you know, people sometimes will use old brick and concrete, you know, to fill in areas. That's not allowed without a special permit, because we're saying that we want clean material. We've defined clean material as no C&D. Okay, just because it's harder to control.
So you're saying topsoil?
Topsoil, gravel,
Gravel.
stone, clay,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
But if you do want to use C&D material, there are some types of C&D material that are considered clean.
Yeah.
Okay?
Really?
But we don't want to presume that. We want some control over that. So we're leaving that to the zoning board, as it is in the law today. You know, today, you have to get a permit from the zoning board, as I said, you know, ridiculous as it sounds, to bring in a wheelbarrow full to fill a pothole. You need a special permit from the zoning board today. Tomorrow, hopefully you won't.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bob, for fielding those questions. I don't know, is there any other comment, questions on that?
Just very quickly, did all the boards get together, like, all the boards get together and kind of discuss this?
Yes, the process that I used, and in fact, I made an original proposal. And I took it to the planning board, and I took it to the zoning board, and I took it to the building inspector, and actually took it to the attorney as well. And there were changes and tweaks to it, so it was a collaborative process that we put together, and including with the building inspector. Actually, I think because of how ridiculous it sounds to have to get a permit to bring in a wheelbarrow full of dirt, nobody could have imagined that that would be part of our law. And so by doing this, not only are we allowing the homeowner to do things that he should have been able to do originally, but we've also drawn attention to it, to the building inspector, so that some types of filling that you're familiar with, I'm sure, will not happen in the future.
Any other comments, questions?
Can you take the general questions?
This is a public hearing on the local law, yes.
I heard a rumor that some local schoolgirls were forced to kiss. What's the...
That has nothing to do with our local law about depositing materials. That's for the school board when they show up.
Okay.
They'll be here at
So
7.
there's no one here that can answer that question for me?
Not at this point, not yet. They're coming today to present the budget. I don't know about that question, but that has
Oh,
nothing to do with
they're not here yet?
No,
They're coming.
not yet.
Okay.
No, it's not part of this hearing. I mean, I did go to the meeting that the school
Yeah, that's
had and
that's-
could
they're
answer
totally
it
separate.
offline, but I'm not going to answer it in the context of this hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I could answer that question offline, but I'm not going to answer it in the context of this hearing because it's not germane.
Okay. There's no other questions, comments on local law number 1? I'll close the public hearing. Time. I'm going to call the public hearing to order for the local law number 2, adopting and amending the Code of Ethics for the town of Clermont. Clerk, will you please read the advertisement?
Clermont Town Board will hold a public hearing and secret review on Monday, May 6, 2013 at 6:55 p.m. at the Town Hall, 1795 Route 9, Clermont, New York, to consider local law number 2 of 2013, a local law amending the Code of Ethics for the town of Clermont to provide that the Ethics Board shall consist of 4 members.
Thank you, Mary. At this point, just a quick update. This is an update to the Code of Ethics that we added a 4th person to the Code of Ethics, which was Clerk Mary Shannon. That's the only change that was made in that Code of Ethics. I'll open the floor for any comment at this period. Questions?
Do you want to say the reason for that?
We did have a...
You did?
Yes, we spit it out. We had a requirement that we were unaware of that there had to be a elected or appointed official from the town on the actual Code of Ethics board. We had 3 people serving on that Code of Ethics, none which were appointed or elected officials. So we simply added a 4th person, and obviously Mary is elected, so that covers us under that requirement. So that is why we are updating this local law. Are there any comments or questions? Okay. Close the public hearing. We'll take, well, we got 2 minutes before the meeting starts. We'll start shortly. Okay, I'd like to call the May meeting to order. Can we salute to the flag, please? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're going to get started this evening. We have representatives from the Red Hook School District here to do a brief presentation. I'd like to welcome Mr. Martin, Mr. Finch, and Mr. Sheldon from Red Hook School. I appreciate you guys coming up to discuss with us like you do every year. I'm going to turn the floor over to you guys to do a little presentation and maybe I'll answer a couple questions if you have time.
Yep, we'll be brief, but answer questions if we have time. This is Mr. Martin, business official. I'm Paul Finch, superintendent, and this is Mr. Sheldon. He's our facilities director. He's here because we have a small infrastructure capital project on the proposal on the ballot this coming May. So let me start with, we are under the cap. I think that's probably what most people are interested to know. Our goals were 2, going into the budget cycle, to stay under the cap and also to maintain opportunities for kids. And in order to do that, what happens is we create this, there's a structural deficit that's created because the tax cap and the mandates that we're under do not play well together. So when we roll over our budget and take a look at what it costs to do the same things next year that we're doing this year, the same opportunities for kids, we come up with a structural deficit of about $1.6 million. So our goal early on in the budget cycle was to figure out how to close that $1.6 million gap while maintaining opportunities for kids. And a couple things worked in our favor this year. As you may have read, we received some additional state aid that amounted to about $515,000. Our assumptions on health insurance, the long-term trend on health insurance increases is about 8% a year. Our health insurance increase came in about 3.7% of that neighborhood. So we were able to shrink it down a little bit more. We had 6 retirements, so we'll be able to benefit from what we call internally breakage. So we have people exiting our system that are making $100,000 maybe, for example, and we'll be bringing in new people at a significantly reduced amount. So we have the breakage there. We're also not filling one full-time position of the retirees. That's a kindergarten teacher won't be replacing that person. So that's pure savings for us. So all of that came together to shrink for that 1.6 down to about $450,000. So in order to make up the remainder of that structural deficit, we went to our pockets to a savings, retiree health insurance accrual. So that's about $450,000 we'll be applying to get the budget to work. So the good news is under the cap and maintaining opportunities for kids moving into the future. And I'll let Mr. Martin fill in some of the details for you around exact numbers. And then Mr. Sheldon will speak to you about this infrastructure project we have that's really boilers and really infrastructure type things.
Is that going to be a separate item on the?
Yes, that'll be separate. Yep.
So just a couple of thoughts to add to that. I'll throw a couple of numbers on top of what Mr. Finch said. On the expenditure side, our expenditure budget is going to move at 2.54% this year. And that's going to drive a tax levy increase that, as Paul said, is under the cap. It's going to be an increase of 3.42%. The tax cap calculation would have produced a maximum allowable tax levy increase of 3.97%. So when that legislation was done a little over a year ago, it was touted as a 2% tax cap. Actually, one of the 13 steps that you go through to figure out what your tax limit is involves multiplying something by 1.02 when the CPI is at or greater than 2%. But at any rate, in doing the calculation, ours comes out this year to a 3.97% maximum allowable levy. And we're at 3.42, or about $163,000 under the cap. I guess the other thing I'd like to talk about for just a minute is Paul talked about the $450,000 that we took out of savings from a retiree health insurance accrual. It's easy to say, it feels pretty easy to do, but the bottom line on that is that after everything else came together, we still had a structural imbalance of $450,000 of ongoing expenditures that we took one-time money and put against those ongoing expenditures in order to fix. Now, it's a relatively small step because we can go back to that account again next year, which we'll have to do just to stay even. But it is the beginnings of potentially a downturn in the financial position of the district when you start dipping into savings to pay ongoing expenses. So it's easy to say, it's relatively easy to do in the first year, but it's a change from where we've been in the past to begin to chip into the financial position in order to balance the budget. A couple of other things that are on the ballot this year. In addition to the budget itself, there is an election for 2 board seats. We have 2 incumbents coming back running unopposed for those 2 board seats. Paul mentioned the capital project, which Mr. Sheldon will talk about a little bit in just a minute. We also have what's really an annual item on the ballot, which is a bus proposition in an effort to maintain a 10-year replacement. We're not quite there, we're more like 11 or 12, but we try to recycle and replace buses on a 10-year replacement cycle. And then we have every 2 years we have to renew our student board member approval. So we have a Usually it's a senior from the high school, usually it's the student council president, and they come and they sit with us as a non-voting member on the Board of Education to give a student's perspective. But that needs community reapproval every 2 years. So let me pause there and we'll let Mr. Sheldon talk about the capital project that's on the ballot.
Like every other school district in the state, we have to look at what our infrastructure is, what our buildings are, facilities, aging, and do what we need to keep them dependable and operational for ourselves. The administrative committee has looked, and at this point we've identified the boilers and heating system at the Mill Road Elementary School as being in the greatest need. That building, you may know, was built, the original building was built in 1969. There was a substantial addition put on the building in 1971. All of the heating plant is original to that installation. So we're looking at boilers and univents that are heading toward 45 years old. In addition to that, we're also looking at the controls. The current system has an older pneumatics control that can be troublesome. The boilers themselves, we're starting to see failures, or we've been experiencing failures, and when you start seeing boilers of that age starting to have problems, the repairs become tens of thousands of dollars very quickly. Another issue is that if we were to have a catastrophic failure or beyond what we would want to spend for repairs, these boilers are large enough that you can't simply go out and pull them off the shelf to put them in. So there's a long lead time. So it's something you really want to plan in advance for, and that's what we're looking at. The building currently has 4 boilers. Our intention is to install just 2 boilers, do some interconnecting. Again, the building was built as a main and an addition. This will make it more of a united system, which will have some energy efficiency, but I'm very careful not to tout it as being an energy project. There's code changes that require greater ventilation, so we're going to be heating more air, but we have to exhaust more air so that we get better air quality in the building to meet current code. In addition to the boilers, we're also looking at improvements, replacement of the phone system, district-wide phone system. System was put in back in the 1990s. The manufacturer is telling us that they'll no longer have replacement parts after July of this year, and I don't think no one wants to be operating a system that you can't get parts for, so it gets a little dangerous in that way. We're also looking at a wireless internet system throughout the district, which will enhance the educational environment for teachers and for students. And then we're also finally, as a result of the events of December at Newtown, Connecticut, we're looking at locks, camera systems, and also card access to improve the security throughout the district. I guess I turn it back.
So we talked for a minute about a contingent budget. If the first budget were to fail, the Board of Education would have an opportunity to go back out for a second vote. If that were to fail, we would be stuck at this year's expenditure level, which would be a little over $1 million we'd have to come up with. Give you some perspective on what that would mean in terms of program. That would be like taking 2 complete grade levels out of the system. We're estimating 12, 13 teachers if we were to do it all on the back of teachers. So that's a pretty big hit. Everything would be on the table, and it would really be devastating for our program. Again, our goal was to come in under the cap and maintain opportunities for kids. And we've done that, and we hope that the voters will come out and approve it.
I just a couple questions to the board, then we'll open up to the public. You said you had a funding increase. I'm just curious, is your enrollment up? Is that why you're getting additional funding, or?
Actually, I'll let Bruce. No, the enrollment is down slightly. It's been decreasing ever since really I took over. There's no relationship. But no, it was the demographic study told us that we would see a moderate decrease over the next, from 2006 until they set out into 2018 or so, and would level off around 2000. And that's just about where we are right now. So I'm thinking that, looking at kindergarten numbers, that we're going to be relatively stable moving into the future, but we did realize a decrease over the last couple of years of about 300 kids. It's not because of enrollment, it's more the high tax aid and some just general what do they call it, the foundation aid.
Foundation aid, yeah. The
They give
state had, 3 or 4 years ago was kind of our high water mark in state aid. And when the economy turned, our state aid dropped dramatically. The state put in place some mechanisms in the formula to cap and actually reduce the amount of aid that was flowing. And this really just represents them releasing parts of those capping mechanisms to let a little bit more money flow back into the local districts.
You know, you really need to, you look at the trend over time though, it's a huge shift from the state to the local level. I mean, when I started in 2006, we were at what, 45, 46% state aid, and now we're down 30.
Yeah, we're at around 30, yes, that's accurate. We were in the low 40s and now we're around 30.
So think about that shift, right? So that's a huge shift from the state level to the local level.
Well, they're actually increasing the amount that they, they already decreased it so far. They're saying it's an increase, but it's just.
Yeah,
it's a
they
decrease
took
and a
away,
decrease.
took away this much, give me back this much,
Right.
and call it an increase.
Right.
If you look at it graphically, it's significantly below where we were 3 to 4 years ago, and it's maybe about even where we were 5 or 6 years ago.
In relation to the boilers, is that money that you're going to spend for that included under the cap or in addition to the cap?
That's a good question. Paul usually mentions, and we didn't mention tonight, neither the bus proposition nor the capital project will have any impact on the 13-14 budget. The debt service on the capital project begins to come online in the 14-15 year. So does not have an impact on this year's tax cap calculation.
But it will in future years?
It'll have an impact on the tax levy. Unlike you guys, we actually get one of our exclusions is local share of capital expense.
Okay.
So it will neither put us over or keep us under the tax cap, but it will have an impact beginning in 14-15.
And the second part of that question, is there any reimbursement from the state for those capital
Yes,
projects?
we're running at 64.4% right now reimbursement rate. You may recall we used to talk about the reorganization incentive aid that had us running at an aid ratio of 80.5%. That actually did finally go away, and we're now using a 64.4% building aid ratio.
There are 2 other items worth noting. We're also applying for NYSERDA, grants from NYSERDA to offset some of the costs as well, being energy. And then the other item is that we have debt service that's going to be falling off in future years that will help to offset this new debt as it comes on.
And there's some talk about, the state providing some additional funding for security upgrades as a result of all the things that have been happening. I'll believe it when I see it. It's my sort of mantra, but I think the last we heard it was maybe 10%.
10%.
So there might be some additional reimbursement there.
Any other board members have any questions? We'll open up to the public. I think Ms. Kathy, you had your hand up first.
Yeah, my husband and I retired up here in 2008, and Clermont's share of whatever the school taxes has increased from 2008 to last year of 20%. So in 4 years, that's an average of 5%. I have a 2-part question. How is Clermont's share of the school budget figured out? All right, calculated.
Yep.
And the second part of that question is, how can I, as a senior citizen and a retiree, budget for my share of the school taxes when I can't translate that levy into the tax rate, the rate per unit or per thousand of assessed value? I've gone down to the school board and I've asked, and no one down there knows.
Well, a couple of it's a fairly complex answer. I'll try to do it quickly. A part of the answer is that your town board here, I think, did you all a favor when they went to the full value assessment.
Because that decreased, yes.
Yeah, because that puts you more or less on par with the rest of the town. So
Right.
what used to happen, you were at the mercy of what's called an equalization rate out of the state, and that would give you huge swings. So you were, being one of our smaller towns, you would swing dramatically both to the positive and negative side of whatever our average was. So if we did 4% in a particular year, Clermont might end up being 0, or they might end up being 8 or 10 based on that swing. So first of all, I think that being on full value is going to help stabilize and make you a little bit more predictable and probably closer to the average number that we come out with. With that said, being one of our smaller towns, you still can see more volatility than you would in the town of Red Hook, where it's going to be a little bit more stable. It comes down now actually to the job that your assessor does on an annual basis to keep you at full value versus the job that they do in Red Hook and Milan and our other towns. So assuming that all the assessors are more or less on the same page and now you're on full value, you should see Clermont move more or less at close to whatever the average number is that comes out from the district versus...
Which would be, our levy will increase 3.4%?
This year 3.4.
So if our levy last year was 29.6 million, it would be 3.4% in addition to that 29.6 million?
Yes, that'll be the total that we'll raise, 3.4.
Okay, and then how do I translate that into the rate per 1,000 of assessed value?
The tax rate.
It's impossible to budget.
Well, it's difficult to budget because in the smaller towns, you're going to swing more off the average than they will in the larger towns.
It went from 2011, 18.8 to 2012, 19.5. All right?
That's your rate.
That's the rate per 1,000.
Yep.
So you can't tell me how that tax levy increase is going to affect my rate per $1,000 assessed value.
No, because some of the factors are not within the district's control. Some of the factors are within the local assessor's control, and it also depends on what
Such as the equalization rate is what you're saying?
Well, no, your equalization rate will always be 100 now, as long as the town stays on full value.
So what factors are under the assessor's control?
Well, I'm assuming that in order to stay at 100%, you're getting reassessed every year.
Right.
So if your assessor decides that your assessment needs to stay the same from one year to the next in order to represent full value, and the Red Hook assessor decides that he needs to reduce assessments by 5% in order to keep properties at full value, that makes your property look comparatively more valuable than the Red Hook properties year over year, and it shifts some of the tax burden to you. So it's not only a function of what our levy is, it's a function of what the assessment...
So if I understand you correctly, if our assessments go down, we get less of the burden of the taxes?
That's correct. If your assessment as a whole, because the first thing that happens in my calculation...
Yours goes down, but Red Hook would stay the same, then it shifts the other way.
Right. The first thing that happens in my calculation is the levy is proportioned on a pure prorated basis into the 5 towns based on total property value. So yeah, if everything in Clermont went down in comparison to the other towns, Clermont's share would go down, and each individual property also would look comparatively smaller than the other properties, and therefore the tax burden would go down in a year like that.
So a Clermont share is based on all property value?
All of the town of Clermont located in the Red Hook School District.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
When do you do all this?
Well, I do my calculation in August, and the board establishes the levy in August.
And you expect us to, from August to September, if we have a big hit, to come up with this money how?
Well, unfortunately, the way the system is set up, we, the district, only have control up to the point of where the levy gets established. Whether it goes more to Livingston, Clermont, Red Hook, Milan is a function of the process that we're talking about now.
I know, but our assessments are out already, so I don't understand why it takes
the town's assessments. The town puts a value on March 1st. They actually aren't finished with the assessment roll until July 1st. And then it becomes very possible to see what the shift is going to look like.
What I do, personally, I live in the town of Red Hook, so if I know that the assessments in Red Hook are staying the same, and we know that the assessments in our neighboring towns are staying the same, then I plan for the 3.42, the average
So
increase.
you just put 3.42
On top of whatever you paid
on the
the
rate.
previous year.
Yeah.
The
No,
rate.
not the tax rate,
But,
what you paid, your actual money out of your pocket the previous year.
okay, but that still doesn't translate into the rate.
All right,
No.
right, but that's actually another factor. For an individual homeowner, it's not only the rate, but it's also your level of assessment. So if your assessor has been taking your assessment down year over year, your rate going up doesn't necessarily. If your rate goes from $15 per thousand to $20 per thousand, that doesn't necessarily mean your tax bill is 33% higher at 20 per thousand than at 15, because your assessment may have come down enough to make it exactly the same, or some other number in between being the same and 33%
How many
increase.
students from Clermont are in the Red Hook School District?
You know, I did that a while back, and I thought it was, I thought it was a couple of hundred,
So I would say
but I don't have that at the top of my head.
So it's 20, last year it was like 29 million for 200 students.
Well,
Let's
except
spread out.
that Clermont represents only about 6 or 7% of the district. So of the 29 million, you only get 6 or 7% of that.
Okay.
You
Mrs.
know
Kessler,
what,
go on. Judy,
you
has
know
a
what
question.
the Red Hook assessor is doing this year, roughly?
No, I don't.
Go ahead, Judy.
Two very quick ones. By the way, I'm still working on that tax business for the last 6 years. Two very quick ones. One, you mentioned the security. I just recently found out that in Columbia County, they have, which I didn't know, maybe with my own reasoning, I didn't know about it. They have a safety council consisting of the sheriff's department, teachers, and parents and social workers. Do they have anything like that in Dutchess County?
For our district, the district safety team, that includes law enforcement. We actually have Jim Truitt, who's former chief of police in Red Hook. He's a security consultant to us. Has parents, has teachers, custodians, principals.
Do they have social workers?
Do we have a social worker? We have no objection to having a social worker. We're happy to.
I would
think we do.
suggest you look into that, because being a former teacher, I know that's very important.
Sure.
And
We
also
certainly
being-
engage them in the event something happens, right?
Also being a former teacher of 39 years, though not in Red Hook School District. I didn't like you saying taking it out on the backs of the teachers, but
I know, they all
I know
don't like
what the
that.
best
They all
is.
don't like that.
But other than that, has Obamacare in any way affected the price of the health care? And will teachers and or retirees be forced into that rather than the healthcare system we now have?
He's our health insurance guru. I'll say that it has not had a major
Right.
effect yet.
Right now, I would agree. Right now, I would say no. It's not driving. I would say it's not driving any change in the availability of healthcare that we contractually offer to our staff. Down the road, we'll have to see what the economics of that turn out to be.
Yeah, because the prices of the regular insurance is going up, am I right?
And
Yeah.
it's probably going to drive increases in the cost of regular insurance.
And to your point of social workers, we have a district level safety team, which actually I chair, but then at each building, there's also a building level team. And I can tell you at the building level team, there are social workers, which they work more closely with an actual event. The district level is more of a policy, looking more at
Even though they
policy.
should be involved, I haven't had very good luck with social workers because I knew of a student who was dangerous and they never did anything about it because they were afraid of lawsuits and of losing their jobs, and he did grow up to kill somebody, and not with a gun, with a baseball bat.
Mm.
So,
Hopefully not.
You have time, a couple of questions?
Okay, make sure you say that louder. Not in red.
Not in red.
Not in red. Everybody else. Sorry, you've been very patient.
One question for
with
the
that.
school superintendent.
Sure, that's me.
Why is there a presentation in school where girls have to ask each other to kiss each other?
That-
Like confrontation? Why is that? I'm against that because I believe that that's a parent's responsibility, not the school's responsibility. I don't want my tax money to go to that kind of stuff.
Okay. I'm glad you brought that up. Let me respond to that. So I'll start from where it began. The principal and the guidance counselors decided that they needed to do some work with the 8th graders. They thought that as a group, they weren't treating each other as well as they should be treating one another, sort of golden rule. And also as part of this, they saw that it's not unique to middle school in Red Hook, that students were becoming involved in relationships earlier on than they should be, quite frankly, and that we think they should be. So they divided the boys and girls up, they being the principal and the guidance counselors, and they included 2 BARD students that they had worked with before on bias awareness training, 2 fine young ladies, and talk to them about treating one another with more respect and concern. And also as part of the girls' portion of it, they talked about feeling comfortable saying no and standing up to social pressures. You don't have to be involved in a relationship in 8th grade. We don't think that that's appropriate. One of the activities they use, which actually is an activity that comes out of a conservative thing called May I Kiss You. It's a lighthearted role play where they are encouraged to find their voice to say, no, I'm not comfortable with your come on or whatever it might be. And so this got spun into promoting lesbianism or something like that. And I truly believe that it was spun. Now, personally, this came out of the middle school. I think there are other ways to get at the same objective. And we've learned from that. We've learned from the feedback from parents, so we're going to move into the future doing different things. Communication with the parents in advance also is something. But not everyone believes as strongly as you do that, it's your responsibility at home to be doing those things. So we have to deal with all kids and all parents that come in, and I think the communication portion up front will really help with the concerns that parents may say, this is my responsibility, I want to take over for this piece of it.
So the parents can opt out?
Well, we're not sure exactly what that would look like, but we do something similar in 5th grade where we teach a maturation unit. As kids start to enter into puberty, parents are given an opportunity to view the materials that we're going to use. They're given an opportunity to opt out if they prefer to, as long as we have the assurance that they're going to be, teaching their own child about these things that are important, the changes in their body and that kind of thing. So yeah, we're learning as we go, and this is something that is challenging for all school districts. I had mentioned in my article DASA, which is the Dignity for All Students Act. As part of that, we need to protect all, there are these 11, 13 categories, they're called protected categories, gender, sex, weight. My kids are short, I say height should have been one of the protected categories, but we need to figure out how to do this in a way that's sensitive to all the kids. And you'll hear kids make really sometimes, and it's not Red Hook specific, sometimes very hurtful comments to one another where they think it's okay to say something, for example, oh, you're so gay or whatever, and that's not okay. And we have to figure out a way to, in an age-appropriate way, make sure they know that that's not okay and why that's not okay, and there are protected categories. And one of the protected categories is gender and sexual orientation. We have to make sure that we do that. We're obligated to do that under the law. So I don't know if that answers your question or not. I would say great intention. My broad comment about what happened in our middle school is great intentions, some implementation weaknesses that we're going to address moving into the future.
Well, I like parents being responsible for that. One other question. The NYSERDA grants you mentioned?
Yes.
Are there any stipulations, are there any strings that the town or the has to do to get that grant? What are the stipulations?
I'm not aware of any. That it's more a matter of the specifications of the equipment that are put in, that the energy efficiencies be there, be it electrical motors, or where we go for a bulk of the grant. So, no, I don't think there's any requirement that the town needs to participate in any particular way or meet any threshold.
No stipulations to buy any, you said?
It would be, as part of the project, the design professionals will have to select high-efficiency motors, blower motors, for instance, in the univents. That's where the grants will come from. It comes off more of a schedule that says, okay, if you can use a standard efficiency motor, or if you use a high-efficiency motor, they will provide X number of dollars to help offset the additional cost. That's generally where the NYSERDA grants work.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to make a comment that the thing about the kissing, I think one of the lessons there is that we shouldn't jump to what the news media, all due respect, news media may be printing about what's happened, and that would be nice to contact your school officials to really find out before you jump to conclusions.
This has been a very strict, I'll address that directly. So I agree with you 100%. It's been a very curious one. So there was a lot of conversation online about this. And the building principal tried to jump in to say, please come see me, here's what happened. That didn't seem to satisfy people. The conversation kept bubbling up. We decided to have a parent meeting. At the parent meeting, I felt like the issues were addressed. I personally, my door is pretty much always open. Somebody knocks on my door, if I'm available, I'll meet with you. And I hadn't had one person come to see me about this. I had one phone call from someone that hadn't talked to the principal yet, and when I referred her to the principal, she never called me back, so I'm assuming that there was some resolution there. So it's a curious thing. And then parent goes to Fox News. As soon as I find out that the reporter picks it up and spins it as we're encouraging a lesbian, promoting a lesbian lifestyle, I responded to the reporter directly. I know he got it because he responded back to me, but refused to change his article and incorporate any of what I said. And so the next thing you know, I have a father that's in Florida, enjoying a retirement. He said, I'm reading in the paper about a New York school. Do you know anything about them? I'm like, that's us. And they didn't print anything that, anything of the other side of the story. So it was really disappointing to me that the media really, in this particular case, didn't want to take any kind of balanced approach or incorporate any of my feedback to their original article.
I like the idea that parents who want to can opt out of it. Yeah. This country is about liberty and freedom, and there shouldn't be a certain agenda being forced on children and parents. So if they want to opt out, I like that idea. And
we try to give that option when we can. I will give you an example of where I'm not sure it makes sense to do that. So in the early grades, we do what used to be called good touch, bad touch. It's really to try and encourage kids, if there's something that makes them feel uncomfortable, that something's happening at home, to come forward to a trusted adult, so we can act, get CPS involved in that kind of thing. If there's an opt-out provision, and I've said this, if there's an opt-out provision for that, we make notification to parents in advance, and they can come in and talk to the principal and find out exactly how it's going to be done in a sensitive way. If there's an opt-out provision, wouldn't you think that the person that's causing some level of abuse would want to opt out? Mm-hmm. Right? So we have to be careful about where and when the opt-out provisions occur.
I'd just like to comment that I did attend the meeting that you had to talk about that, and I came away with the impression that, well, there were some things that went on that I wasn't thrilled about, but it certainly was nowhere near as bad as it was made out to be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I think you've explained it pretty well.
I personally know somebody their daughter came home at dinner time, asked their mother if they were lesbian after that happened in school. So obviously something else, took place, and their parents were very upset. So when kids come home asking those questions, then whatever they're being taught shouldn't be taught in school. We also have 2 bills in our Senate and our Assembly right now to provide treatment for sexually transmissible diseases to minors without a parent's consent. There's too much in the hands of our legislators and our schools that the parents should be in charge of. That's their job, parenting the kids. When I was a kid, my dad taught me about bullying, and, you know, the birds and the bees. And it's not the job of our schools or our legislators to do that, so.
I still have a question about the budget.
Oh, we're doing a budget presentation?
It's my understanding that the Mill Road School has like two, you know, it's separated from, I don't know, like kindergarten to third grade, or,
We have a K2 side and we have a 3-5 side.
and there's two principals and
Correct.
assistant principals? Why
No
is that?
assistant principals.
Oh, why is that?
No.
It's like a duplicate of almost everything?
It's two separate buildings. The building, when I first started, was 1,000 kids. Now they're about 400 and 500, which is, you know, appropriate to have one principal in each building. To have one principal for
So it's not
900
mandated by
kids.
state law or anything?
We are mandated to have one principal per building, and now we've had our district divided up into a K2 building, a primary building, and an intermediate building.
Okay.
So each building has to have one principal.
Okay, and the last year or the year before, you had, there was something in the news again, where Red Hook was talking to Germantown about a potential merger. Whatever happened to that, and why isn't more talks going on?
Okay, so the last we left it with Germantown was we are open to having a study done, but we wanted it to be it's really a 180-degree study, so we wouldn't limit ourselves to just looking at merger or sharing services with Germantown, but Pine Plains and Rhinebeck as well. So we we wanted it to be a comprehensive survey, and that's where it has stayed. We are still remain open and committed to if
Will there be any
the
contact with
districts
them
want
again?
to do
to-
that. I mean, I can reach out again, but unless my counterparts in the other districts are interested in pursuing that, we remain open to the idea.
Because I come from Maryland where the school district was by county.
Right.
And I am telling you, the taxes were nowhere near, and I'm talking some pretty upscale schools where over 95% of the kids went on to college. You never worried about the taxes. Up here, it's a shot in the dark. Every year you have to worry about how much of my tax is going to increase. How much money do I have to put aside every month? Is my retirement going to cover this? You're choking us out of existence. You're forcing people to leave.
Is there a way to get the budget to decrease so you can lower taxes? Has that ever been tried?
Without gutting the program for kids. I mean, there's no way to do it without gutting the program.
Gutting is a strong word, but you know it.
Gutting is what I mean. So if you take the possibility of a contingent budget in Red Hook this year, where we have a budget that fails twice, and we have to find over $1 million, I could wipe out our entire athletic program and only get $350,000.
Can you reduce the salaries of the teachers? Would that help?
Well, one of the things, and we were talking to one of our legislators recently about it, is the Triborough Amendment. Maybe many of you probably know that's the guaranteed step increases when the contract, even after the contract ends, there's guaranteed increases. So for us, that's in a neighborhood of between 2 and 2.4% year over year. That's in the absence of a new agreement that we have to pay, and we also have to pay locked-in health insurance contributions unless they're negotiated increases. And every year, I guarantee, we go to the table and we say, we need more contribution on health insurance, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But without, and I've said this too, without relief from the mandates, and by the big mandate that no one's really talking about is Triborough, quite frankly. Without relief from that, you don't have the leverage at the bargaining table that you need to make things happen, to keep your labor costs in check.
How do we eliminate that as citizens?
It's a state thing that is a very difficult thing to change. I know that the superintendent, from the superintendent's perspective, we have over and over again, whenever we're talking about mandate relief, I'm talking about relief from Triborough. Not just for teachers, but support staff. And we have 3 bargaining units in the district. So.
It seems like public workers in this state are exempt from any pain when it comes to increases in their expenses. They just receive their increases on a regular basis, and people that are not working for the government don't have an advantage. I mean, just overall, it's ridiculous. It's not really the American way, So I can't understand how we can have 2 classes of people in this country with so many people working for the government. I grant you that those same people that work for the government have to pay taxes too, but they still overall have an advantage. So, I mean, I might be preaching to the choir, preaching to you, but I'm just making this a general statement for this room, so.
Every year since I've moved up here, I get something right around voting time. I get something in my mailbox that is akin to fear-mongering from people saying that the students are going to suffer if you don't vote for this. Who puts that stuff out? First of all, it's not even postmarked, so it's illegal to put it in the mailboxes. But who puts that stuff out?
It's not me, but I will tell you, I will,
No, I'm not saying that.
but I will tell you that,
I mean, I don't know how.
I will tell you that the students will suffer. There will be a certain, again, if I had to eliminate it on the backs of teachers, that's 10 or 12 teachers that would suffer the loss of a job, but hundreds of kids that would suffer the loss of opportunities that just won't be there for them.
Like what opportunities?
So we'd start by athletics. We'd start with extracurricular clubs that they may have. We try to preserve core art, music, anything that's not mandated service that we all would sort of take for granted in having in a school. Librarians, these types of things that would really hurt.
Okay, I know we're taking up probably more time than you guys allotted. Maybe one more question from Julie.
It's really more of a comment from a former teacher. See me later. My mother used to say, keep the salary, just get her supplies. I put more money into the classroom than I made. And believe me, I'm not rich now. I'm paying the same taxes you are, and I'm struggling. But yes, mandates are a big part of it, and the things they cut, the art, the music, there are children who are not academic, who need the art, the music, and to feel good about themselves that they can succeed in something, and the athletics. So, he knows. You don't know. You know, because I've sat in on their budgets. Go sit in on their budget talks, and you will see they do a really, really good job of trying to keep it down. And I'm not in their school. I mean, I'm not one of their school teachers. I didn't work in Red Hook, but I sat in there and was impressed with what they did. And a lot of it is mandates that they haven't got any control over. So
the best, if you're going to do some sort of advocacy on the state, it's mandates. It's mandate relief, and you'll get lip service from politicians. Quite frankly, I'm gonna get in trouble with putting some hand that they're gonna come after me. But you get lip service from politicians that they are going to do something about the biggies, but it doesn't happen. And until we've got that leverage at the bargaining table, really boards and superintendents are at a disadvantage. Because why would I, if I'm a teachers union, for example, and I do think teachers work very hard and
you're talking to the wrong person. I'm not a big teachers union fan. I'm sorry.
but what incentive do I have when I'm sitting on guaranteed 2.5% increases and my health insurance won't go up if I just sit?
Right, exactly.
So
what would you like to see changed? Can you review that?
the Triborough amendment to the Taylor Law is what most superintendents would say is the biggest thing that blocks controlling labor costs.
I have a quick question about school security. My son goes to the junior high in Red Hook, and what kind of proactive security do you have on the school buses and at the school that would stop someone intent on doing harm to the students?
So we look at it, Chief Truitt has drilled this into us, so the 4 Ds, right? So we've got, first D is not detection, it's deterrence. So what's the deterrence that we have? We have contracted with the Red Hook Village Police to have a presence. It's not every day, all day, but it's a random presence, so people know that we have the police around.
Right.
So that's one thing. We have video cameras. We have a single point of entry during the school day. We're looking at school, actually next week, going to bring in school security monitors that'll help us in the morning, and they'll do a quick security sweep to make sure we start the day fresh. One of the weaknesses we have, it's a weakness, but it's the thing that makes us nice as a school district. We're pretty open before the school day starts and after the school day. We can't afford to have somebody staff it the entire time, so what we thought we'd do is we'd have a morning security monitor that would be able to do a security sweep, so we start the day fresh if anything were to have happened the night before, and then greet visitors prior to the school day beginning, and then we're pretty much locked down during the school day. We drill teachers in lockdown procedures, et cetera, et cetera. We don't have a huge defeat capability. No school has a huge defeat unless we have some sort of armed principal or teacher. I have an administrative team that's willing to willing to do whatever it takes, but there's some level of training that has to go into it, and we're investigating that. But we don't have what would be a huge defeat capability. It's more of a, you're to some extent the sacrificial lambs. Our goal is to delay long enough with a single point of entry, and however we do it.
Now, the single point of entry, I got to tell you how I think it's not that secure. I had, this was after the New York SAFE Act was enacted, all right? And this act was supposed to make us safe, but it's really not doing anything for school security. I went to pick up my son, I hit the buzzer, Mr. Stone, I'm here to pick up Jack, and boom, they buzzed me in.
Is this the middle school?
This is the junior high.
Yeah. Right. So we recognize that as a problem because of the design of it. So if you look at the junior high now, you'll see the new entrance that's being built right into the main office.
There you go.
So you'll have to walk right through the main office.
And there'll be someone there to say, okay, there he is, is he carrying it?
You won't get in.
Yeah.
You won't get in.
That's only going to let you into a locked vestibule at that point, of which you'll be face to face with a
That's part of the last
personnel who's
capital
got a good
project.
eye on you.
Protection, whatever it takes, because you never know.
Yep.
One last question. When is your budget hearing, and people can come if they have more questions to ask?
It's actually this Wednesday.
This Wednesday.
2 days from now, if you want to hear the same presentation in a little more detail and ask more questions, you're welcome to come. 7 o'clock, 3-5 cafeteria, and we have the vote on the 21st. That's a Tuesday. That's Mill Road, 3-5 gymnasium where it usually is. And there's a registration date.
That is on May 15th. That's also at the Mill Road School. So if you're not otherwise registered to vote and you want to be registered in the Red Hook School District election, you can do that by registering at the Mill Road School on May 15th.
Okay. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thank you for
We
your
always
time.
enjoy the opportunity to come talk. So
Any more questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dad, my mother was a teacher, kindergarten teacher.
That's what it is.
Yeah, really?
Okay, let's move on to approval of prior town board minutes. The April 1st board meeting. Anybody have any comments, questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Thank you. Town clerk report, Mary, if you would, please.
Town clerk's report for April 2013. Dog licensing, $25. Community house lease, $1,000. Town clerk's fees for vital statistics, $160. Community house donations, $50. Miscellaneous copies, $2.75. The decals program, $3.20. Total check for the general fund, $1,240.95. Paid to New York State Department of Ag and Markets for dog surcharges, $10. Paid to New York State Department of Environmental Conservation for decals, $54.80. So total for the month of $1,305.75.
Thank you, Mary. Motion to accept the clerk's report.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mail review. Do you have anything?
Yes,
We do.
we do. I have a couple of hours changes. The town court will now, on the fourth Thursday of the month, they will start, instead of at 7 o'clock, we're going to be starting at 6 o'clock. So we, the assessor, myself, and John have always come in. I come in at 5 o'clock on Thursday. And usually I would leave at 6:30 or 7 when court would start to get into full swing, because both judges would be here. But we don't know how this is going to affect our hours yet. But I will still be here at 5. Court will start at 6. I imagine John and the assessor will probably still be coming in around 6. We don't know how it's going to affect us, so, but they're starting at 6 p.m. nevertheless. So, my office, the town clerk's office, I will not be able to hold hours this Thursday on May 9th, and also Saturday 6/1. So I'm just gonna, I put that on the website, I will post it on the door. So this Thursday night, I will not be here, and Saturday, June 1st. Not be here. And then I have a notice from the assessor. First, I should say that tentative assessment roll has been completed. There's a copy here to be looked at, if anyone needs to come in and see it. He has sent out change notices, and that would only be for those whose assessments went up, increased. If it went down, and if there was no change, you will not get one. He will be here on Tuesday, May 7th, from 10 to 12 noon and 1 to 3 p.m. On Thursday, 5/9, from 10 to 12 noon and 1 to 3 p.m. Usually he's here in the evening. I don't know if he will be on this Thursday, though. He did not put that on here. Saturday, 5/11, he will be here 10 to 12 and 1 to 3. And Thursday, 5/16, he'll be here from 3 to 5 and 6 to 8. Grievance Day is Tuesday, May 28th, and the hours are 3 to 5 p.m. and 6 to 8 p.m. If you want an application, we have them here. There's also a booklet on the procedures for contesting an assessment, so they are available here. The dog control officer had an inspection by the Department of Ag and Markets on April 15th, and it was rated satisfactory. So we have that. She's been getting those right along. Pretty good.
Excellent.
Yep. Town of Red Hook notified that they're going to have a public hearing on May 14th at 8:15. And this is on a local law to prohibit brine on town roads, which is, I guess, that stuff they spread now in the winter for ice control. That'll be on May 14th at 8:15. Also on May 14th at 8:45, they're going to have a public hearing amending zoning to make a minor adjustment to the dimensional requirements in the traditional neighborhood development zoning district. That's all I have.
Good, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to committee reports. Hey, do you have anything?
Yeah, I've updated the specifications for the community building to include bringing a screen door on like we discussed.
Oh, excellent, good.
Okay. The Hover Fund is in the works. I gotta get some more information from Mary on that. And Mary Howard, with her help, thank you, we're moving forward with a comprehensive plan for our community park. And I have been in touch with Real Property, and Suzette is going to give us all the information that we need so we can make a master plan and a master map. But this is a project that's going to take months and months, but we'll get there. So next year this time, maybe we'll have a nice grant for us.
Hey, good things take time.
That's right.
Very good, thank you.
Until you start.
Okay, Bob?
Yeah. Well, we've already talked about the local law 1, which we'll be voting on under old business, I presume. And there will also be a vote for a resolution for the fee schedule to go along with that, assuming that passes. In new business, we're going to have to set a public hearing for a one-word change to the highway specification. And I just want to bring that up now so that you can be thinking about it. It's very simple. There's a typo that says that the town will be held responsible for improper lot grading which results in damage from road runoff, which says that if somebody doesn't follow what they're told from the highway superintendent and there's damage to their property, the town is responsible. It should say the town will not be held responsible for improper lot grading which results in damage from road runoff. And I have discuss that with the highway superintendent and our legal counsel, and, you know, if there's any question about it,
Yeah,
it
no,
has to be
that's
changed.
just a mistake that for some reason slipped through whenever that was written. So I'd like to set the public hearing at this point for next month. We'll do it at 6:45.
Yeah, that's fine.
Our June, or excuse me, June, what is the date? June 3rd. June 3rd, 6:45. We'll have a public hearing on that.
Okay. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that I did attend the Livingston public hearing, which is joint public hearing of their planning board and zoning board to discuss the communication tower that the county needs for safety, actually. And in fact, there was mention of things about the safety in the schools. That there are some, I'm not sure if Red Hook is affected, but some of the, at least one of the school districts in Columbia County has areas that their school buses are out of communication with their home base and need this new tower to be able to improve their communications. And I think the fire departments and all need it as well. I went through it expecting it to be a no-brainer. If you're going to replace a 190-foot tower with another 190-foot tower, it would seem like, so I didn't even sign up to speak or anything, but it turned out most of the speakers were in favor of it, but most of the letters, stacked about that high, were from people out of town that were opposed to it because it's in the view shed of Alana. You know, if you go up to Alana and look for that communications tower, you got to really look to find it. And I went up there a week ago Sunday. Unlike the radio towers on Route 9G, that if you stand on the south side of the house, I mean, they're right there in your face. But that communication tower is so far off, and it sticks up just a little bit, that you know, there's a need for it. And I did find out today that it was supposed to have been voted on this past Wednesday by the planning board, but they put it off till June for some reason. But anyway, it is needed. I think you know that.
It's an absolute necessity for public safety, absolutely. So, okay.
So that's it.
Thank you, Bob. Evan?
Nothing to report.
Okay, we'll get to those resolutions in a minute. Thank you. Nancy, you have anything?
Nothing.
Okay, old business, just some updates. The bridge update, I mentioned last month that the county was proceeding with an RFP to get the prices for Bingham's Mill Road Bridge to be repaired or replaced or even closed. They're going to look at 3 or 4 different options and go back to some price scenarios. We did approve it at the last full board, so it has begun. We'll wait to see what the report shows and the numbers that come back for that bridge. And then the county will make the decision to either move forward with closing it completely, putting in turnarounds, or rebuilding it. And it would be a project that would not be done until at least 2014, because there is no money in this year's budget, obviously, for that. So, but it is, it's in the works, and I'll keep you updated as soon as anything new arises. Probably it'll be a few months before we get a report back. So. The data collection, I just wanted to mention again, the data collector, I'm going to mention this every month. The data collector is going around throughout the town, inspecting properties. They're leaving cards. She's leaving a card in the door if no one's home, and they are taking a picture of the homes. And just want to make sure everybody realizes it's been posted on the website. I know we've said it a few times, but it is going to be happening throughout the summer. Every property in Clermont will be visited for the reassessment update. To touch on what the regular school district said here when they were here, this is to maintain 100% valuation for everybody to make it as fair as possible. So this is a necessity that I feel that we should be committed to, and we have been, and we will continue to keep the town at 100% to keep the values as equal as possible for everyone. So that will be maintained again throughout the summer. She'll be around to every property at one point or another, and by next year we'll go through and reevaluate everybody again and have new values or updated values, let's put it that way. The audit, I just want to mention an update on the audit. I got an email from the auditor. I've been trying to find out where they are in this audit that we've hired them to do on the town. They advised me that they have all the information from our bookkeeper. He provided everything to them a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. They want to set up a date to come down to meet with me and Mary, and I forwarded an email to Mary as well. to get mostly the records. Mary has whatever they couldn't get from Brian, our bookkeeper, and they are going to be going through this. They put it off, I think, because of the tax season. You know, auditors are very busy throughout the tax season. Now they are finally taking on, they're going to get started on this. So we should have, hopefully by next month, have a good handle on where we are with that. But again, me and Mary will be meeting with them to provide whatever additional information they need that they haven't been provided with. New business, just want to update everybody on our revenues. We received our first quarter sales tax payment from the county this month in April. It was $72,428.55. It was about $3,000 to $4,000 less than last year's payment, so it is a little under what we expected, or excuse me, what we realized and we accepted last year, received last year. But we did budget, we are on budget for what we budgeted. We budgeted a little less than what we received last year, so we're right about where we thought we'd be on the first payment. But again, the trend is the sales tax has come down a little bit, spending has come down a little bit. So, you know, we hope that the trend holds steady, the revenues continue to stay at a reasonable amount to hit our budget line. And as of right now, it looks good for now. It's in the first quarter. So, the mortgage tax for the first 6 months will be coming next month. We had the updated numbers, a draft number from the clerk's office. We'll be voting on this coming meeting, actually Wednesday night. It's roughly $18,000 is our share for the first 6 months. Again, right on budget. We budgeted, I think, $35,000 in revenue. So it's basically about half what we budgeted. So if the second half of the year comes in where we thought, we should be right on our numbers. But again, it's about what we figured would, you know, the numbers would come down to. And I just remind everybody again, I put this out there because it's amazing, but 4 years ago we received $100,000 in mortgage tax in a year. Now we're lucky to get $35,000. So there's a huge revenue decline on the mortgage tax side, as well as the sales tax. Okay, local laws. We held a public hearing earlier this evening for the local laws 1 and 2. The first local law, number 1, we presented the amending the town of Clermont zoning law relative to definition of storage unit and earth filling and depositing. This requires a secret review. I've spoke to the town attorney, he couldn't be here this evening. He's reviewed this. He advised us that it would be no environmental impact on this update, and he said that we need to pass a resolution declaring a negative declaration, and he says absolutely no problem with that. So I would ask for a motion to pass the negative declaration.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. So now we can consider local law number 1. We just discussed amending the town of Clermont zoning law relative to the definition of storage unit, earth filling, and depositing. We heard public comment on this issue tonight. Any discussion? Any further comments from the board?
I move that we approve.
Second.
We want to take a roll call vote on local law? We should. Please.
Okay, Councilman Kale,
Yes.
Councilman Desmond,
Yes.
Councilman Hempel,
Yes.
Councilwoman Moore. Yes. Supervisor Sacks.
Yes. Motion approved. Thank you. Local law is approved, I'm sorry. Okay. Local law number 2. We had this discussion, we had a public hearing earlier this evening on local law adopting and amending the Code of Ethics for the town of Clermont, which was just the adding of the 4th position of elected appointed official. Any comments on that?
So moved.
Second.
We should have a roll call vote
Okay,
as well.
Councilman Kale,
Yes.
Councilman Desmond,
Yes.
Councilman Hempel, Councilwoman Moore, Supervisor
Yes.
Sacks. I'm so tempted to
Local
say
law.
first names. Sorry.
Local law is adopted. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Resolutions. The first resolution we have this evening will be the fee update after we just updated the local law. We also have resolution number 46, whereas the board wishes to revise the town of Clermont fee schedule and include permit fee and exceeding filing, filling, and depositing restrictions for landscaping driveways and septic systems to coincide with local law number 1, 2013, which establishes a limit for filling and depositing in 1 year period. Bob, do you want to comment just on the update on that? The only changed.
Yeah, this provides for a fee if you exceed the 50 cubic yards that we mentioned earlier in the public hearing, and you go to the building inspector to get a building permit to exceed that amount. There is no fee for the up to 50 yards, right? So you can bring material in for your driveway or landscaping or anything as we just passed in the law. If you need more than that, you need to go to the building inspector, and we put the minimum fee that we have in the schedule at $25, and there may be up to 2 inspections, depending on what you tell him you're doing. He may want to come out and inspect what you're doing, and then inspect it at the end to see that you did do what you're doing. So the maximum would be $75 for the 2 inspections.
So if we don't pass this, then there would still be an inspection, but it would be free. The permit process, because we just made the local law change.
Good question.
Yeah, I mean, we do have, I mean, our building permit fee is designed to include 2 parts. One is the actual fee for the building permit, and one for the inspection. So if you build a new house and you're going to get 6 or 7 inspections during the process,
Right.
you're going to pay $25 for each of those.
No, I'm just saying if we have somebody whose driveway is, a little bit longer, or it got partially washed out in a flood, and he wants to put gravel in, if we vote no on this, he'll be still able to do that, and we'll save him $25.
Technically, yes.
Well, if it goes over 50.
If it goes over 50.
If it goes over 50,
Perfect.
right.
Right, you have to solve it.
Yeah, actually, I think if I think that would be at the discretion of the building inspector anyway. I mean, if he knows the property, he may not have to go and inspect it.
Right.
Okay, what we're trying to do is if you're going over 50 yards in a year, we want to make sure that you're not using that to approach on wetlands and things. So I think we do need an inspection.
I'm not objecting to the inspection here, I'm just saying we can potentially make it so that, if people are using it for these legitimate uses, we can let them do it without having to pay the town anything. We all agree that these are legitimate uses.
If you're repairing your driveway, you already had a permit when you put it in, first of all. If you're repairing your septic, you're gonna go to the county health department on that anyhow, so you're gonna either get a permit or you're gonna get a, go-ahead to the county health department, so that's already a known given. So the only issue at hand is if somebody wants to come in and fill a low spot in his property that maybe takes a couple 100 yards, that's the only, there would really be no need to inspect the driveway that's already been done. And the health department would do the inspection, they supersede the building inspector and the septic.
The inspection is to ensure that that's what you're doing, that you're not saying, well, I need 100 cubic yards to fix my driveway, and then you're going to put half of it off into a wetland. That's the reason for the inspection.
But we're not talking about eliminating the inspection, we're only talking about the fee for the inspection. Because the inspection is already in the local law.
Yeah, there's fees for every inspection. That's part of the way the building inspector gets paid. And that's part of his salary.
Right.
Does that answer your question, too? I mean,
Yeah, I'm just...
I know what you're trying to say, but
Yeah.
obviously...
He's trying to decrease bureaucracy.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
the cost has to be borne by somebody. If we're not charging additional for that service, the building inspector obviously has to go do it. He's not getting paid for it. It comes out of the town tax base anyway, we're paying him. But, this is trying to offset for the initial user to actually foot the cost for that.
I don't think you can say some things need to be inspected and paid for, and others need to be inspected for free. It's
I mean, it is
a
can't do that.
whole new problem.
It's an additional request of the inspection, so,
Right.
$25 is the most minimal charge we could put down.
It kind of rubs me wrong that if somebody has a longer driveway, then they have to pay extra.
Again, that would be, the
Realistically, I
discretion.
don't think we're going to hit this very often, but...
Right.
Yeah.
I know what your point is, I know where you're coming from, but, to make it, a fee that's borne by the user and the request, again, we put the most minimal charge that we could put on it. I think that, you know, it's the fairest way to do it. So, I'll accept the motion to accept this resolution.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Resolution passes. Thank you for your comments. Okay, resolution number 47. What did I do? Resolution opposing the adoption of the SAFE Act.
Opposing the process of enactment of and certain provisions contained within the New York SAFE Act. Am I reading?
We were presented this resolution last month. We considered it. We talked about it. We said we'd look it over and vote on it this month. Would you like Mary to read the resolution? Does everyone want to hear what this resolution is? I mean, we've already read it.
What resolution is this? I couldn't hear.
Maybe.
It is, all right, I'll read.
Maybe better read it.
It's a resolution opposing the process of enactment of and certain provisions contained within the New York SAFE Act. Whereas the Town Board of Clermont has long advocated for protection of the rights afforded to citizens under the Constitution, which has for generations guided our nation and served as a framework to our democracy and society. And whereas the Second Amendment of the United States provides for the right of the people to keep and bear arms. Okay, whereas the Second Amendment of the United States provides for the right of the people to keep and bear arms, and further states that this right shall not be infringed, and that this right has been a bedrock of our nation for over 2 centuries. And whereas the New York State Legislature has recently adopted legislation, the New York SAFE Act, proposed by Governor Cuomo to curtail these rights through the enactment of various anti-gun measures that will significantly impact legal gun owners and various businesses and suppliers of guns and related supplies and equipment. And whereas this legislation was approved with scant public notice, very little public debate or review by state lawmakers, and in the days since the legislation was introduced and enacted, concerns have arisen regarding various matters of law and potential defects in the legislation. And whereas the Clermont Town Board believes that portions of the Act are necessary and will in fact increase the safety of the citizens, however, other provisions of the Act appear to be unnecessary, arbitrary, ill-advised, and contrary rights guaranteed by the United States Constitution and reaffirmed by the United States Supreme Court and the courts of the state of New York. And whereas the Clermont Town Board believes that an issue of the seriousness and effect should have been granted a respectful and appropriate period of debate, review, and consideration. And whereas, as New York State already has some of the toughest gun legislation in the country, including the Sullivan Act, and concerns have been voiced that this legislation will not improve public safety in the state, including concerns by legislators who initially supported the legislation. And whereas additionally, federal lawmakers and the President are also considering legislation or executive orders that would further infringe on the Second Amendment. And whereas this legislation will unfairly affect the rights of the many law-abiding gun owners in the town of Clermont and New York State who are granted the right to keep and bear arms under the Constitution. And whereas this legislation also does not adequately address the many acts of violence committed by criminals who are likely to ignore this legislation and does not address the concerns of many residents, particularly those in rural communities, to possess firearms for the purpose of home or self-defense in accordance with the provisions of the Second Amendment. And whereas this legislation imposes a number of unfunded mandates on county government and taxpayers, and whereas, as written, the Act increases the stigma on the mentally ill, and whereas 52 counties, over 180 towns, and numerous law enforcement and other organizations have enacted resolutions opposing both the process of enactment of the Act as well as certain provisions contained therein. And whereas the Clermont Town Board does hereby affirm support for the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution and the rights afforded to residents under the Constitution, and opposes attempts to infringe on those rights. Now therefore be it resolved that the Clermont Town Board affirms support for the Second Amendment and states opposition to the legislation New York SAFE Act adopted by the state legislature restricting the rights of gun owners and opposing attempts on the and opposes attempts on the federal level to implement new restrictions on these rights. And be it further resolved that this legislative body further requests that the New York SAFE Act be repealed during the current state legislative session. And be it further resolved that the clerk of this legislative body is hereby directed to transmit certified copies of this resolution to U.S. Senator Charles Schumer, U.S. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, U.S. Representative Chris Gibson, Governor Andrew Cuomo, State Senator Kathy Marchione, and Assemblywoman Dee Dee Barry.
Thank you, Barry.
Oh, you're welcome.
Whereas, I'm going to have it. Therefore, I'm going to do it.
So there's the resolution in its entirety. Any further discussions?
Can I ask a question first?
Not at this point, I'm sorry. There's public comment if you'd like.
Did you have comment period on this resolution at all? So the citizens don't get to say anything about this resolution?
I wouldn't be opposed if people want to speak before we vote.
I don't want to turn this into a debate. Obviously, we've had discussion on this before, but if you have a question or if you'd like to address
Yeah,
this.
I'd like to know who drew up the resolution.
Well, Bob, would you like to talk? Would you like to speak first?
Yeah, what I'd like to mention is at last month's meeting, there was some discussion on this resolution, and actually, we as board members were presented with two different resolutions. One of which I found to be somewhat disrespectful and judgmental, and remember, I would not vote for that one, even though I might have similar feelings to what was in there personally. I think that as a legislative body, we should make sure that we are respectful even if others are not. Okay, and I think this one that we have passed, and there was a little bit of tweaking on it during the month. Evan had presented it originally, and I had commented to him on it, and so we have looked at it, and it, like I said, it was presented at the last meeting. I guess you weren't here at the last meeting, I think. So
That leads me to another question as to why the videotape for the meetings aren't up like right after the meeting, so that I could, if I'm not able to attend, I could watch it, and then I would know that there were comments, and I would not
well, it's been on already. Right?
No,
They're not up.
That's my fault. I missed that it was posted, and had a very busy month at work, and I should have had it up. Sorry.
Strictly.
When do they usually get up there?
Usually they're within 3 days to a week after the board meeting. This resolution is basically a copy of the one that was passed by Columbia County, with just some minor changes because, you know, Columbia County has an Office of Mental Health and we don't, and the number of counties and towns that have opposed it have changed, but it's mostly the same text.
Okay. Motion to adopt the resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Who made the motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
All opposed. Resolution is adopted. Resolution.
One nay.
Yes, one nay.
Okay, I'm still seeing whereas.
You got another one.
I know, therefore.
We have another resolution, resolution number 48. This goes along with what we just discussed, and this is the resolution, and I'm going to have Mary read it so everybody knows the full context of this one as well.
And excuse me if I start. Resolution opposing frivolous use of messages of necessity and calling for due process in New York legislative process for the protection of civil liberties and rights. Whereas the Town Board of Clermont has long advocated for due process and careful and deliberate consideration of all legislative acts, in particular those which are controversial or have far-reaching consequences, and whereas the bedrock of the United States of America and its constitutional form of government is its formation as a nation of law with due process and deliberation, and whereas the New York State Constitution recognizes the need of due process, careful deliberation, and transparency in government by declaring that except in times of emergency, no bill shall be passed or become a law unless it shall have been printed and upon the desks of the members in its final form at least 3 calendar legislative days prior to its final passage. And whereas the New York State Constitutional Conventions of 1915 and 1938 foresaw the danger of indiscriminate use of messages of necessity, the 1915 convention proposing an outright ban on messages of necessity, and the 1938 convention amending the Constitution to require the governor to certify the facts of the emergency, and noting, quote, "It is the hope of the members of the committee that if the governor is required to certify facts which in his opinion constitute an emergency, it will not fall into a pro forma signing of a printed message," unquote. And whereas the use of messages of necessity has sadly indeed become a pro forma convention used to cut short debate and pass controversial legislation in direct contravention to the spirit of the New York State Constitution. And whereas messages of necessity have been used over 1,200 times since 1995, including 29 times by Governor Cuomo in 2011, 23 times by Governor Spitzer in 2007, and 34 times by Governor Pataki in 2005. And whereas messages of necessity have been used to pass controversial legislation such as the redistricting statute, the Tier 6 pensions, DNA database, teacher evaluations, and same-sex marriage. And whereas the Teacher Evaluation Act has become a burden and unfunded mandate on local schools, and it seems to many that the end result will be more paperwork and less time for teaching. Excuse me. And whereas the Same-Sex Marriage Act has been recognized to infringe on religious liberties and individuals' consciences and causes a reduction in needed services when religious organizations are forced by law to stop providing a service or violate their conscience. Resolved, the Town Board of Clermont declares that messages of necessity are in the majority of cases not used in times of true emergency and are therefore used frivolously and in contravention to the spirit of the New York State Constitution, and resolved that this legislative body calls upon Governor Cuomo and his successors to only issue messages of necessity in times of true emergency, and calls upon the New York State Senate and Assembly to reject messages of necessity unless there is truly an emergency, and in such cases place a brief sunset provision on the bill in question so that a full debate can be held when the emergency is passed. And resolved that the clerk of this legislative body is hereby directed to transmit copies to the same that I read before, if that's okay.
That's fine.
And there is a reference page here for the information on certain statistics, which is attached if anyone wants a copy of that.
Thank you again for reading
Okay.
the entirety
That
of
was
the
shorter.
resolution. Any other questions on this resolution?
The only thing I would say is that I was appalled to find out the number of times that that message of necessity had been used. I mean, to say that the legislature can't take 3 days, wait 3 days so that they have time to read it before they vote, you know.
Want to get public input on that too, which is very important.
You don't hear.
But if you came to the meeting, I guess you probably could have. You know,
It is a staggering number of times it's been used, there's no doubt, and, you know, again, I can't stress enough that open debate on issues like this by our state representatives is crucial. So I feel that this is a necessity. We should move on this.
absolutely.
And the open debate, we've had debate.
We've talked about this issue, and I hear the background, and I'm sorry that you weren't here, or you didn't be part of this discussion, but we have talked about this issue. We haven't had a public hearing on this issue. But
Well,
it's been-
okay, I had the video, I could have watched that.
Well, I'm sorry about that. That was a one-time oversight. Obviously, we were pretty good about, Evan's been really good about getting that on there, you know, in a timely fashion. We try to do that, and we, you know, obviously it runs on the cable channel. It's open for anybody that has GTEL cable to watch it as well. I mean, it does run on the cable channel as well. But, so I'll entertain a motion to accept this resolution. Approve it.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? One abstention. Resolution passes. We have yet another one.
You could read that.
We have, this really falls under a budget amendment. Move down. Resolution number 49.
It's just a way to put some pressure.
Briefly to explain, we have a budget amendment increasing the revenue for the CHIPS lines. There's been an increase, I mentioned last month that we were going to receive extra money from the state as far as the CHIPS money for the road repairs. I thought it was around $5,000. Jimmy had the actual numbers provided. It was closer to $10,000. So it's great news for us, extra money to put into the road repairs. So this is to increase his revenue and also increase his appropriations, so the money goes in and goes out to roads. Resolution number 49, to balance, resolution to balance accounts for additional CHIPS funding, whereas it's necessary to make budgetary transfers to balance the accounts due to receipt of additional consolidated local and highway improvement program, CHIPS, funding from New York State. Be it resolved, the supervisor be and hereby is authorized to make the following budgetary transfer in the highway fund. Is to increase CHIPS revenue DA 3501, $11,507.16, and also to increase CHIPS appropriation DA 5112.2C, $11,507.16. Motion?
So, second.
Second. Any other questions? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. Moving down, supervisor report. Couple things to update everybody on. The courthouse project, one of the big projects, obviously one of the biggest projects going on in the county right now. It's been getting a lot of publicity, a lot of articles in the paper. There's been several issues with asbestos in the basement of this building. It was initially a small budget for asbestos abatement. I believe it was around $100,000, and now it's almost double that, if not more. They found additional asbestos in areas that some they couldn't find, they couldn't see. It was behind walls, on top of areas they couldn't get to, so every time they tore something down, they found a little more. So there's been an ongoing change order on asbestos abatement on the courthouse. Still, you know, as far as following the budget, we're still well within the budget. There was a healthy contingency on this project. We still have probably $400,000 or better in the contingency line, even with the changes. So moving forward, we're still on track to be on budget. There's also been some discussion on the electrical upgrades. That's been in the paper as well. There was an oversight in the beginning of the project on the size amperage that the building had to be supplied with. That was corrected, but it was a upcharge of about $45,000 in that neighborhood. And then there was another change order coming to upgrade all the equipment to handle the higher voltage coming in. So there was another upgrade to, I think it was another additional $40,000 roughly. So, I mean, there has been some overruns on some of the bids. But again, in general, this is an $8 million project. You know, you're talking small amounts, and we are within the budget, which we're counting on staying within the budget. And, you know, it's moving along. There's been talk about upgrading the heating system. I think, and I agree, is a crucial thing that needs to be addressed. There's a 100-year-old, now it's probably only 60-some-year-old steam system that's in there that provides heat to this building. It's been patched several times. You have a building completely tore apart, vacant. There's no better time to address this than now. If you know, we put the building back together in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, the heating system goes, you have to tear walls up, floors up, you have to replace this at that point. It's just going to be a huge, huge cost expense, you know, to do it additionally later. You know, the building is vacant, this is the time to do it. So we're looking at about roughly $400,000, I believe, addition for that to the project, which would eat up most of the contingency, but still be within the cap. Still not cap, excuse me, still be within the budget. So we are considering that. We will have it at the next meeting to actually vote on, I believe. But it is something that I believe is crucial to the project, and it should have been in the initial bidding to be done. But we will be moving forward with that as well, and it is on track for the time frame. Still is on. It still is on track. So hopefully the project will come in under budget or on budget, even with the additional overruns. Pine Haven Home, the new Pine Haven Home has been discussed upon several times as well. Wednesday night, we're voting on the award of the architectural bid for the design of the building. It's around $1.2 million. It is a healthy chunk of money to put towards this project, which there's been a lot of questions about. Is the county still going to build a new home? Are we committed to do this? Is it, can we afford it? The answer is yes. We are moving forward with this project. It is a reimbursable amount. Even if we hire the architect to design this amount is reimbursable over the next 2 years, even if we do not follow through with the project. So we have to do this to get to the next step to find out the actual bid documents and the actual cost of the project within as close as possible. So we are moving forward with awarding the bid, and they'll be designing this project and getting the bid forms out so we actually know the actual price tag of the new home. And again, I've been a supporter of this home since we started on this project, even when I first got on board. I think it's crucial that it is a service that we can provide to the taxpayers of this county. And as of right now, it is running efficiently, where it's not losing any money like several other departments in the county that should be addressed. So at this point, I certainly am behind it and will continue to be behind it until I find another reason not to be. But I'm moving forward with that project. The Eager Tower, I was just going to mention, but Bob did a fine job on that, just that is a crucial safety issue for the county. And, I certainly agree with Bob as far as the noticeability of this tower, even from the lawn where they say it's horrific. This is just, it's a necessity for the county's safety, and, it really is not offensive. And I can't say any more than that. So I hope they follow through with this and that turns out all right. But I certainly support the new tower. The airport acquisition of property in Meadow Greens, that's something that's also been recently in the paper. The bid from the county was denied by the property owner for the additional purchase of land to extend the runway, which is being federally paid for, 95% of it basically. So just to bring everybody up, if they haven't read the article, the county needs to purchase additional land to extend the runway. And this is part of the Meadow Greens golf course, the first 2 holes. We had it appraised by a couple appraisers. The first appraiser came in $600-some thousand. The second one came in almost $700,000, $690,000. We took the higher appraisal because we actually hired an appraisal review by a separate organization that said the higher one would probably be acceptable, closer to the real value. So we took the higher one and made an offer to purchase this land to the owner with the higher value, which by the law we have to abide by. We can't offer any more than the actual fair market value. So we took the fairest market value, the highest bid, offered it to the owner, and he still denied the sale of the property. So where this leaves us is this is something that's needed for the airport. We're certainly trying to reach out to the owner to see if there's his reasoning and what he thinks it should be worth, but we cannot offer any more than what the fair market value is. The next step would be eminent domain, which is a word that nobody wants to hear, but we would have to enter into eminent domain to take the property, give him the fair market value, which is the $690,000, and move on. And if he decides to fight that, it could be 2, 3, 4 years in court, which is probably likely. But it's the only step we have as far as moving forward for something that the county needs to acquire, and hopefully we can come to some agreement with the owner other than doing this. So,
Can I make a comment on that, or?
if you want to comment, you just wait till the next section right at the end. Any comment you want to make? New Lebanon landfill. There's another issue that's, I don't know how much has been put in the paper. I lose track of some of these articles. There's one landfill left in the county that is still unclosed as far as DEC is concerned. The county actually took charge of all the landfills back in the 90s, closed all the landfills throughout the separate towns. And New Lebanon, there was an issue on that property because the owner of the property would not allow us to do the closing and would not allow the town to do a closing. So it was left alone, and now DEC has gotten involved where they've issued Well, they're going to levy fines against the town because it is town property now. The town actually is responsible for closing because it's within the town. And they want this resolved and closed. So the town has come to the county to ask us to pay for a portion of this closing since we closed all the other ones in the 90s. And there's been an arrangement presented, or an offer presented to the county to pay $625,000 towards the closing of the landfill, which basically is 1.6 is the total cost of this. So the county is going to, or the town is going to apply for funding. They're going to be funded 90%. They're going to foot the other 10% of it, and they want the county to pick up the rest of it. It's something that needs to be done. There is liability as far as the county is concerned. It needs to be closed. The county does have a part, and they should take a part in closing this. The number, I don't know exactly if it's the right number, but you know, that's being looked into at this point. And you know, I do feel that the county does have to take some responsibility since they did foot the bill and close the rest of them throughout the county. So that will be coming up. I'm sure you'll read something about that in the upcoming month, but we will be probably moving on that to get it closed. And it also relieves the county of any liability since it is still in the town property, still is in the county. If something happened there, the county would ultimately be listed as responsible as well. So this would get it out of our hair, and the town would take responsibility for it. The only other thing I really want to mention in the county is the financial situation. That was just recently came to, you know, it was in the article. You know, this is one of the times that I wish I wasn't right, but you know, I mentioned this last month that you know there was an issue coming in the county, and shortly after this meeting, we were briefed in the county by the controller and the treasurer that you know the money situation is not great. We're going to be running very short on money come the end of this year. I kind of spelled it out last month. I said that you know I saw this coming. You know, the budget was passed at a 0% increase. And there's some supervisors saying, well, I know we should have never passed a 0% increase. I don't agree with that because I still think there's many areas that can be reduced and cut. My vote for a 0% increase last year's taxes was because I was counting on reductions and efficiencies that were never put in place. So there is places to save money and reduce the budget. And if we would have done some of this stuff, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in. So, you know, I'm going to mention a couple things again. I've said them several times, but Certified Home Health Agency, the CHA, we're running $600,000 or $700,000 every year expense to taxpayers. It's a cost. It's serving, I think the article that was just in the paper, 10 people or less. I mean, this is ridiculous. You know, last year when it came up for vote, it was voted down by the supervisors to get rid of it. I think it's being considered again, and I certainly hope it is, because you know, I mean, this is, you know, how can you ask the taxpayers of the county to foot $600,000 or $800,000 in the hole every year for 10 people? There is a company that's willing to buy this shop from the county. Still, we had the offer last year that they were going to pay $100,000 to purchase this from the county. They still, I believe, are honoring that offer, and I believe this will be coming up in the county again for a vote. Probably not until June, but I certainly hope they're getting the things together because it needs to be addressed immediately. I have to bring it up because, you know, Hudson could certainly help out as well. The city of Hudson has 5 supervisors that are paid $14,000 apiece to be on the county board. They represent less than the 1 supervisor in Kinderhook. They represent 6,500 and some people. There is absolutely no reason to have 5 supervisors from Hudson representing 6,500 people charging the county that kind of money, plus benefits or retirement or whatever else that goes along with it. It's easily $100,000 a year savings if the city of Hudson would change their voting district or change the representative district, which they simply can do on a hearing and a vote, to 1 or even 2 supervisors if they want. But to have 5 supervisors is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, there's a cost savings there of probably $100,000 plus with benefits and retirement. I've asked the chairman of the board at the last budget meeting, last year for the budget process, to think about a vacancy committee. I asked again January 1st of this year when he was reappointed as chairman. And I asked again about a month ago about putting together a vacancy committee, 2, 3, 4 supervisors. I offered to be on that committee. I'd even like to head that committee. And I asked him if we could put this in place so every vacant position that comes up in the county gets scrutinized. Some small group, like I said, 3 or 4 supervisors goes into every department and looks and finds out, is that position really needed? Because we have to reduce the workforce in the county. We have over 900 employees, which is extremely high, and the cost of operating is just, it's tremendous. I mean, the pension payment alone at the end of this year is $8.2 million. The only way to reduce that, obviously the state's never going to help us out, is to reduce the workforce. And there is opportunity there. There's positions that can be reduced, could be reduced to part-time. There's ways to do this. But for the third time in a row, I've heard, well, I'll think about it. So as of right now, there's no vacancy committee, and it's not being considered as far as I know. So there's ways to reduce the cost of the county operations, and it's not on raising taxes on the taxpayers. And you know, when it comes to the budget this year again, I'll probably vote 0% again because I know it can be done. There's too many opportunities to reduce the spending rather than raise taxes to solve the problem. So I just feel very strongly about that, and I have for years. And I think one of the recent articles said I even started voting against vacant positions. I don't know who wrote that. I think it was Nathan. And I have, and I voted against a few of them, and I'm going to vote against a lot more as far as any new positions coming up. That's about it. That's about all I want to go over in the county. Just remind everybody, grievance day, May 28th. Obviously, get the paperwork filled out, make an appointment, come on in if you have a problem or if you don't want to be heard. And I also wanted to mention, since next month's meeting will be right before it, the Clermont Firehouse Barbecue is June 8th, the second Saturday in June. So if anybody's interested, please get a hold of a fireman for tickets, or we can provide tickets here as well. We'll have tickets to sell, I'm sure. But keep that in mind for anybody that's interested. That's about all I have. Move on to motion to pay abstracts, and then we'll take public comment. June 8th. I believe it's 6:30. Yes, I believe 6:30.
You ready, Mary?
Okay, yes.
I move pay general abstract number 5 with vouchers number 93 through 124 in the amount of $6,405.25.
So moved.
So I moved it.
Second.
Close enough. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Okay, I make a motion for highway abstract number 5, vouchers 36 to 49, for a grand total of $6,393.91.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, public comment. You were waiting nice and patiently if you'd like to. Okay, thank you.
You need to sign that up.
I'd just like to say I'm very disappointed, and Councilwoman Moore should be ashamed of her vote against the New York Safe Act resolution for our town, as well as the message of necessity. You swore an oath to defend and support the Constitution of the United States of America, and you wrote that. History repeats itself when the people are ignorant of history or are unaware of what's going on around them, or both. As soon as a population of people is deprived by their government to defend themselves, they are slaughtered. Russia killed 40 million of its people. China killed 50 million of its people. And Germany killed 13 million people. Gun control is all about control because it starts with gun registration. It forces people to disclose that they have guns so they can be targeted for future confiscation of those guns. Our fundamental right to defend ourselves comes from God. The Founding Fathers knew this and had flawless perception when they gave us the Constitution, especially the Second Amendment. Thomas Jefferson said, "The strength
strongest reason for people to retain the right to keep and bear arms is, as a last resort, to protect themselves against tyranny in government. Katie Worthman, an Austrian-born Hitler survivor, states, in Nazi Germany, after the guns were registered and the government decided to confiscate guns, if you didn't comply and turn in your guns, you faced capital punishment. It took only 5 years for the Nazis to gradually escalate up to a dictatorship. She warns us to keep our guns and to buy more guns. She reiterated our founding father, Thomas Jefferson's words, "When the people fear their government, there is tyranny. When the government fears the people, there is liberty." I'm addressing this because it is representatives like you who are supposed to support and defend the Constitution instead of represent their own feelings or some kind of progressive agenda which will supposedly make us safer, but will instead leave us defenseless, prey for any criminal element, and victims of tyranny. You, as well as everybody here tonight, sit here as free Americans. If the colonists didn't give up their guns in 1775, there would be a different story. Don't think that everyone here don't you think everyone here deserves to stay free Americans? And our future generations as well. The Second Amendment has nothing whatsoever to do with your personal feelings, that you don't like guns or something. If you don't like guns, then don't possess one. If you try to take that right away from everyone else, that's wrong. We don't want history repeated. So learn what the Constitution is and why you took an oath in the first place. That's a copy. Our founding fathers fought, bled, and they died to secure our freedom and to give us that law of our land. Everyone complains that our rights and our freedom is disappearing, or that there's something very wrong in this country. It's because the Constitution is legislated away and ignored. I hope everyone in Clermont who's watching this recording will be motivated to holding their representatives accountable to the Constitution, all their representatives, which will be a start on the road to getting our country back. Thank you.
Okay, last month, I did get up and walked out before the meeting was over because I was extremely upset with something Supervisor Stats had said. And I didn't want to comment until I had all the facts and to see whether or not I was correct in my assumption. And it seems I was. For the last 4 years, 5 years, I, for one, and I know a few others, have been talking about our bookkeeper, who has been fired from 5 towns. I don't want to repeat myself over and over again, but you have constantly said, we're a small town, he can't make a mistake. If he did make a mistake, which he can't make, you would catch it because you go over all of his checks and whatever. At the last meeting, you were very careful to say it wasn't a mistake. You said it was a misunderstanding. And thank God it was only $500. It could have been $5,000, $5 million, it's the principle. I thought that your decision and the decision of the entire board that voted with you to let the assessor keep his overpayment of $500 was an incorrect one. It also turns out it is an illegal one. I've contacted the assessor's, the comptroller's office. They pointed out it was a legal matter, and they sent me to opinion 89-18, and I'll only quote a small part of it. And it says, it is well established that payments of salary which have been made by a municipality in excess of the amounts which the municipality is legally obligated to pay would constitute payment for services which were not rendered, and if the employees were permitted to retain such monies, it would be a gift of public monies in violation of Article 8, Section 1 of the state constitution. Mullane versus Mackenzie, I won't read all the 269 and whatever and whatever. We believe that the same analysis would apply to the unauthorized payment to the chairman of assessors. With respect to the procedure for recovering the payments, we believe the town should first give the chairman the opportunity to voluntarily repay the amount of the unauthorized payment. Such a repayment may be made all at once or upon other terms as may be agreed to by the town and the officer, which would be very simple, taking out a little excess of his salary from now until it's paid off. We note in this regard, however, that the ability of the officer to agree to repayment through deductions from salary may be limited to some extent by public policy considerations, Friedberg, etc., etc., etc. You may have this copy of the law. I thought Andy Howard would be here tonight and go over it with you. You can check it with him. But there's the law. And I believe what was done at the last meeting was illegal and should be rectified. Thank you.
I will certainly look into this because we did, I think maybe after you left, we did amend the pay schedule for the amount of the assessor. We increased his pay schedule and corrected the amount that he was paid as...
But that doesn't recoup the 500 that he already has received.
I will certainly find out. I ran this by Andy once. I'll certainly talk to him about this again because...
And again, I wish you would look into this bookkeeper because closing the barn door after the horse is gone is a little bit late.
Well, the instance you're talking about, just because a lot of people weren't here for this, I'm going to refresh everybody's memory. There was a misunderstanding, and that's what I'm going to call it because that's what it was. The assessor, we awarded a raise 2 years ago in the budget for the assessor. It came January 1st, his raise did not get put into his first check. So there was a mistake. Okay, that's a mistake. So I called the bookkeeper, I said, listen, we had a mistake, we need to put the guy's raise into his check, so put the extra amount into his check to pay him for the next month's and the last month that he missed. So he increased the amount that the assessor was paid and never decreased that amount for the rest of the year. So when he increased the amount he should have got for the 1 month plus the back pay, that added up to about roughly $500 overpayment throughout the year. I didn't catch that because I haven't in the past, I've started now. I don't go through and look at everybody's pay scale, times it out times 52 weeks, and see if that matches. Again, it was a misunderstanding that the bookkeeper didn't take that back out. It was a simple misunderstanding, error, whatever you want to call it. But you know, that is something I started doing that since this has happened. So I understand how it happened. I certainly will find out.
We've made so many mistakes before, not just with our town, as I said, with other towns. And
I'm relying on our audit to hopefully point some more out so we have a reason to really look at this because as of right now, he's done a good job as far as I'm concerned. And even this small error, misunderstanding, it's understandable for me. And I'll certainly look into the legalities of fixing this and see what Andy has to say about this. But we'll certainly look into it further. Okay? Thank you. Yes, sir. You want to just step up to the podium for me?
Just a very quick comment about Columbia County Airport. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they're not extending the runway itself at Columbia County. Now, Columbia County Airport has one runway and they land in both directions. What they have to do is clear the land beyond the end of each end of the runway, so in case an airplane does run off the runway when it's landing, it has a place to go, without hitting people and buildings and that sort of thing.
You're absolutely correct.
So,
it's a safety area that
it's
they
a
need to
safety
extend.
area,
Yes,
correct.
I'm sorry.
And I think it's an FAA requirement. I'm a pilot myself, and I just heard this like through the grapevine, to do this. Okay? And if they don't, I believe they will not be able to land, the corporate jets that they land there now.
That is correct. We jeopardize losing the bigger jets from coming in there.
That's correct.
That's absolutely right.
And revenue from them.
Yes. Thank you for adding to that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Any comments? Mr. Davis?
I just wanted to publicly support Councilwoman Moore's ability to think for herself and have the liberty to make her own choices.
Thank you for your comment. Anybody else? If not, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Nobody wants to leave? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.